Wait. What is this shit?
Not safe for f***ing worker placement podcast.
I flipped the board. I despise that game. Oh, shit. That sounds like... Oh, wait. Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of the Not Safe for Worker Placement podcast, a board game podcast brought to you by me, Leandra.
And me, Ben.
We're a married couple and we're here to talk shit about board games.
That's right, babe. We are. You can find us online at nsfwppodcast.com, on Facebook at NSFWP Podcast, and on Twitter at NSFWP Podcast. Also, look for us on iTunes and anywhere else that might have stolen our feed and put it on there. Let us know if there's any other places. So episode 6, babe. What do you think about?
I am super excited. I can't believe we've actually done 6 episodes.
I know. It's like almost a job now, isn't it?
I know. Weekly. Ugh.
No, I think it's fun.
It is fun. I enjoy it until you start getting stressed about it. You're like, oh, it's got to be uploaded weekly. We got to get it done.
Well, I want to keep a schedule up, and I don't know why I started out with a weekly schedule. It seems kind of intense,
it's a little harsh.
That's all right. So at any point, we might drop it to once every 2 weeks, twice a month. But I don't know. For now,
we're doing good.
We're keeping it up, and we're going to try to do that.
We got some listeners, like actual listeners. Like, it's really exciting.
Shout out to Rodney.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah.
And your brother's listening.
Yes, in Oregon.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, good. We need more. So rate and review on iTunes. That'll help us out. Now let's get on to our main order of business, babe. Which is what?
Our most recent games.
Yeah, what we've been playing.
Yes.
What have we been playing lately, babe?
Ooh, let's see. Well, Sunday we came home from Springfield. We went shopping and we came home and we played, I'm going to pronounce it wrong.
Hey.
Was it Caverna?
Let's try it about 3 more times.
Caverna?
It's Caverna.
Caverna.
The cave versus cave. It's the new 2-player only version of Caverna, which we've played before. The full game. The full game is a big, huge worker placement game that takes a couple hours to play. It's got 1 million pieces. And this one comes in Mayfair's line of 2-player only games in the small little box. I thought it was a very good game for the tiny amount of pieces that are in there, and the idea of wondering, you're basically taking half of the game of Caverna, just that you're getting rid of the whole animal husbandry part, and all the fields and all that, and you're making it just about the caves. What'd you think about it?
I liked it. I seemed to struggle a little bit learning it. I think, like, for some reason my brain wasn't taking on the correct way of making it happen, and I kind of struggled with it to begin with. I don't know why. I mean, it's a simple, fun game, but it took me a couple of rounds to be like, oh, that's what we're doing, and then finally be able, it just kind of clicked.
I kind of get that. I mean, you say that in every game, and then you end up winning, which you won this game too.
That's
so
true too.
You say it in every game, the whole game. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's happening. Oh, I won. Whoops. But that happens every game. But this one, I get it because, well, the rule book, first of all,
the rule book was kind of difficult.
It wasn't great compared to, like, Caverna itself has a very detailed, has 2 rule books. It has one that just breaks down every card and everything that's in it. This one didn't have that. It didn't even anywhere explain some of the cards.
I think if we hadn't played the full-blown game first, this one would have been even more difficult to learn.
Oh, yeah, because it takes some of the same concepts. But basically what you do is over the course of 8 rounds, you're going to have, I think it's like 12 different actions, and you start getting a new action every round. You start out with 4 actions, and then you end up with 12 at the end of the game that you can select, and you take turns. I pick an action, you pick an action. I pick an action, you pick an action. And it's all about clearing out our caves and then furnishing them with rooms that give us points and that allow us to do things. And they'll do anything from, like, give you some wheat, or give you some wood, or give you some gold. It's mostly to turn it into gold. And that's the one thing that took me a little bit to figure out, is like, what is the main end goal? Mm-hmm. How do you get points in this game? And it's by building the rooms, of course, because they're printed on there. But also gold seems to be the main thing. You're trying to do everything to build up, because the better buildings cost more gold, like
Once
a lot of gold.
Once we figured out what the symbols meant, because the rule book didn't explain, what each symbol meant. So you're trying to figure out what their little symbols were that equaled this to make this card work. So once we figured that part out, it was smooth sailing. But those first 2-3 rounds, I felt it was like a little difficult. We're constantly having to go back to the rule book to try to figure out what each little thing meant, so we knew what that particular card could do.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. It's out of character for Uwe Rosenberg games because he usually, most of his games are the biggest productions that Mayfair does, and he usually has really clear rules. This one seemed like, they wanted to have a short rule book, so they just left some stuff out. They're like, you figure it out.
Yeah,
and
we did.
We could figure it out, but it wasn't as intuitive as I would, have hoped.
But once that was done, the game was fun.
Yeah, and it was really good. I thought it was fun. I thought for the limited number of actions you have, and just, thinking they're cutting that game down by like, an eighth of the actions that you can do or more in actual Caverna, you still have some very tough choices to make throughout the game because they added that whole wall thing about building walls, and that's tricky because you can only build certain rooms if you have the right configuration of walls. And there's only a few walls that you can build, and then you have to start. They're hard to do. There's only 2 actions in the whole game that allow you to build walls, and one didn't come out in ours until the next to last round. Yeah. So we couldn't really get some of these big rooms until you had to start thinking outside the box in order to like look at the shape of your cave and like build one. We figured out halfway through the game that, we could get one whole room surrounded by walls, which is what you need for the most high scoring tiles. We realized you could do that with one wall, but we didn't either one see that for half the game. So it just forces you to kind of really look at the nature of the board and everything.
I'd like to play it again, now that we have the rules down. I'd like to play it again.
For sure. I got to beat you. I mean, I can't just be a loser.
Well, I went halfway through the game. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I won.
Did the whole time, yeah. You're like, you do that. And you get all my best thinking out of me to help you, and then I don't even know what I'm doing on my turn. I think that's your master plan, isn't it?
It is. You just caught me.
I just figured it out. How many years now? And I just figured it out. So, you ever think about that? Like, you almost, which is good because if you lose a game, first game, usually it's a turnoff. But if you win a game, the first game, you win all kinds of first games. Like, I'm teach the game, you win.
But then you win
and then if we play again,
so maybe that is
I play,
true.
and then we never play I win, and then we never play the game. That happens all the time. But, and I don't let you win. Believe me, we've had that discussion.
I know.
Like, sometimes you're like, you should just let me win, and then I would have liked it. You used to say that, and then if I ever did, I tried that once or twice, and then I told you because I can't keep that a secret, and then you'd get really mad about it.
Yeah, don't let me win. That would really piss me off.
I can't. Anyway, I could go into a game thinking I'll go easy on her or whatever, but I know I'm gonna lose anyway. So I'm like halfway through the game, I'm like, I can't go easy. I gotta go for the kill. Then I end up losing anyway. So following that, we played. And again, I pulled the old trickaroo. I didn't tell you that this game was kind of difficult to learn or anything. I just threw it out on the table. I was like, you want to play one more?
What's this next one?
Yeah. And you said, yeah, sure. So I pulled out a release from Stronghold Games. It's called La Granja. It came out, I think, last year, maybe the year before, from Stronghold, designed by Andreas Odenhall and Michael Keller.
You totally lied to me because we started this game at 9:00 at night, and you put the board out, and I was like, is this a really difficult game? You're like, oh, no, it's super easy to learn. Bullshit.
It's not that bad. It made sense to you halfway through.
And, like most games.
And you won.
And I won, yeah.
Like most games on first play. So what La Granja is it's kind of hard to explain. It's not really. I guess it's a farming game set in, I don't know, I'll say the 1800s because I say that about everything. I don't know. It's a primitive type farming, village farming in somewhere Spain, I'm going to guess. Might not be. Might be Mexico. But somewhere they speak Spanish.
Somewhere.
Anyway, so it's a farming game, and it's all based around these multi-use cards and this player board that you have, and where you can put these cards in different places to do different things. They'll do 4 different actions. They will either give you an order to fill if you put them at the top of your board, or they will expand your fields if you put them on the left-hand side, or they will expand your pig farm capabilities and your income and your hand limit and stuff. You put them on the right side, and if you put them at the bottom, They just give you a special ability to use at
So
any
your
given
one
time.
card let you do 4 different things.
Yeah.
So you've got what, 5? Was it 4 cards in your hand? 5
It's
cards.
4 to start out with, and then you have a 3.
And so
hand
you're
limit.
looking at, all of those different options and what do you do? And then there's this big, huge board that allows you to get more stuff. So you can turn your
have to make
pigs into
deliveries.
bacon, and you can turn your grapes into wine, and you can turn your olives into food, and and so there's all of these different ways to win. And I focused on delivery. So you had to get all these different types of stuff and fill the delivery with your little mules, and you had to have the mules to deliver all the different kinds and types of food. And then Ben focused on, what did you focus on?
I focused on delivering to the specialty shops
On the
around
board.
Yeah,
and I focused mostly on the delivery for my cards.
Yep.
And I won.
You won by, I don't know, quite a bit.
Quite a bit.
Like maybe 10 points or something like that. No, we recounted. It was only like 3 or 4 points. But
I like your 10 point better.
No, I know. But I remembered. I was like, because I was like, we got to recount this. But I had counted one of my 5s as like a 1, I think. Because that's the one thing I don't like about this game. I'm tempted to make a scoring track for this game and put it alongside, just print one out, like design one on Photoshop or on like Illustrator, and then just print it out, because it uses these little point tokens that you get in 1s, 3s, 5s, and 10s, and you're just all the time scoring points, and you're all the time just digging in and getting these little points.
Change with them.
Yeah, and making change all the time.
And
I don't see why, like, if we're both scoring somewhere in the 60, 70 point range, if you made a 100-point score track and just use one of your pieces, the user, I think that would be much easier than fiddling with those. But anyway, that's my one real complaint. I really like the game, and that we only talked about like kind of one part of it, like that using your cards is only the first phase, and then the second phase you roll a bunch of dice. Whoever's first player rolls a handful of dice, and then in a 2-player game it's only 5, and then there's a bunch of actions on the side of the board, 1 through 6, corresponding to the die faces, and then you place all the dice that whatever number you roll along the side, and then you take turns taking a die and then doing an action that's associated with it, which is like getting a pig, getting some money, getting some upgrades, getting up on the siesta track, which gives you points. It's how rested your workers are. They give you points, and they give you turn order. Whoever ends up the highest on that track every round gets, and so that's only the second round. Then the third round, you go through and make your deliveries, which is about, you have these little donkey tokens. They have 1, 2, 3, and 4 donkeys on them. And then the less donkeys they have on them, the more that you go up on the siesta track and you play them. You pick one of those, and that's how many deliveries. However many donkeys you play is how many deliveries you can make. So you have to weigh all this stuff at one time. You might have one of your orders that's for like 4 goods, right? But you've already used your 4 donkey tokens, so you got to use your 1 donkey token, and then hope that you have some bonus abilities to get those extra ones out that turn or whatever. Like, there's just a lot going on in the game. And it all works together really well. It's not very hard. Any one part of it's not very hard. It's just figuring out how to make it all work. And I think it's really hard to come up with a focused strategy, because the whole time I'm just like, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. And every card, my special ability was good. And I didn't use a single one the whole game. And every one of them was good. But I was like, I can't pick, so I'll just use them for something else, Well,
I wish there was a way to be able to play more than 1 card per turn.
There is, like, that when you get that roof tile, like you were able to once, and there's a couple of different ways. Like, there's some cards that'll do it, like special abilities cards that'll let you do it in certain circumstances and stuff. But you did it in one round. You really needed to play another card.
Yeah, but normally.
Yeah.
Like, if you could play 2 cards, that way you could, do a delivery and then have a special action, but still cancel them all out at the end of the round and then have to redo it on the next turn or something like that,
It makes you make a lot of choices.
It does.
Every card has a lot of choices on it. I like it. I think it was really good. And I'm glad you won it, because then maybe you'll try it again sometime.
We'll see.
I think it'd be better. 2 players, it seemed like it was like wide open, not very much competition between us, on the board and stuff. You made all the deliveries to the middle of the market, and then you kind of had that taken over. So I really couldn't do much with that. Every time I'd put a piece down, you would just kick mine out. So that kind of limited that part.
And that's where all the points were, because each one was all the points.
You were scoring like 5-6 points a round just by that, and I wasn't getting anything. So that made a big difference. But that was La Granja by Stronghold Games. I really like it. I'm glad we got to play it. And then on Saturday, you had some of your family come over.
Yep, Sue and Tammy came over.
And we played a couple of games then.
We did. We did. What did we play to begin with?
We played Dead Man's Draw.
Oh, yes, Dead Man's Draw. I love that game.
We talked about that last week.
We did. We won't talk about it too much, but it's one of my favorite. Just simple, just easygoing, easy to teach.
How did they like it?
They liked it. They seemed to like it. They weren't ready to switch over to the new game, but we were glad we finally switched over to the new game.
Yeah,
so.
they liked it. They your Aunt Sue, she every round would have to read. She wasn't grokking the special powers on each card. Every time she'd play a card or flip a card, she'd stop and read it.
That's my fault. We shouldn't have introduced the special powers per player until they were more comfortable with the game.
That did throw her a little bit.
It did. We should have just played the basic game and not the
special
powers.
But they totally got it because they have the little player aid. So it's like, even if you've never played it, you can just sit there and read off the card and play the game fine. So.
But, kudos to them. They're not big, huge game players, but they love coming over and having game day with us and learning.
Oh, yeah, they'll try anything.
Heck yeah,
They're not scared to try anything. They'll tell you right off, too, if they don't get it or don't like it, too.
And then, so the next game we played, what we won't talk a whole lot about, was one that you created. Ben said we can't give a whole lot of detail online about it.
Oh yeah, because it's such a hot thing that somebody's going to steal it. No, I just I'm a fledgling game designer. Probably like everybody who's ever played a game.
What, 4 or 5 different games?
I've got 3 like serious ones that I have good prototypes for. But this is just the latest one, and it's a trick taking game, and it's a Cthulhu theme. But it's trick taking games are hot right now, so I played a few these newer breed of them, and I kind of got the bug for, hey, I can make one of these like this. And so I combined that with some not set collection, but like cube pushing and scorecard.
Don't give out too much detail.
I'm not, babe, but nobody's going to steal it anyway. But I always worry about that because like I've made 2 other prototypes that I put a lot of work into, and I plan to like kickstart them and all these things. And then I'll wait too long and I look, and then there's a game on Kickstarter or a game that gets released that is like so close. I mean, it's real. They're really not. It's not like my games are obsolete, but it's like you got to go back to the drawing board because they did something so similar
that you would look like you were cheating.
Yeah, I would look like I copied it. You know, so that's one of those things where I don't want to give this because this one is pretty simple to produce. I think so.
And you're so good at them. You're creative and you're good at finding out the mechanics of what people are interested in. So this one, without giving out too much detail, it involved like regular poker playing cards and then like gaming like I like. So Sue and Tammy, they were all over. Like I don't play poker. I don't know anything about that kind of
but
games.
they played hearts and spades and other trick taking games and scum and stuff like that.
I didn't know anything about that side of the game, and yet I knew all the I understood the other portion of the game as far
the more board gamey
stuff. So it was funny because Tammy's like, "Oh, I got this. I'll teach you."
That part,
So that was kind of fun that it intermingled both types of people in one game too.
And honestly, she knows more about those kind of games than even I do because I'm not a straight up card game player very often either. So for me, I'm trying to nail down what are because a lot of those people have played those kind of games a lot. They know the ins and outs of them and how they work and what works and what doesn't. And so there's some things that I'm trying to nail down the rules, of just the card portion of this game. And I want to get that right. I don't want to necessarily do it like every other one, but I want to make sure it makes sense. So putting it to somebody who's played a lot of those games, she cleared up a few things for me where she was like, well, you got to do this because otherwise then this doesn't, And so that helped, because it really did. It made me nail down pretty much the basic rules. Yeah,
and playing it out, we were able to, well, I really liked this portion of it or, this could be a little bit more challenging or have more options. And that was fun.
What playtesting's all about.
That was fun.
And I played tested this one about 4 times. And every time there's something that like everybody likes it, but they're all like, it's taking too long. Like the game is just taking too long, and they'll give me ideas, and immediately I'll go, yeah, it's definitely taking too long. How can I fix that? And there's some things, immediately I was thinking, revamp this, revamp that. And then I had this real simple thing of like, no, just instead of getting to select 1 card here, let's just select 2 here. And then that immediately cut the game in half.
Well, we play 30 minutes?
45 minutes, I think, and that's about what I want to hit. Yeah. So yeah, I think just doing that one little tweak from the playtest before helped, and a tweak that I'm going to make from this one to the next one will help a lot. And that's the whole idea of, game design. So it's always good if I can get somebody to play my games and they enjoy them. I always have a good time then. So that's pretty much all the games we've been... Oh, no, there's one more. I almost forgot.
What's that?
Before that even, since we're working our way backwards from Sunday on Thursday on game night, I played a really cool new game. It's called Tiny Epic Quest. It's by Gamelin Games. And I don't have the designer in front of me, but I think it's the same designer that has designed most of their games, and I can't remember his name. I'm wanting to say Scott Alms, but I could be wrong. I'll have to double check that and someone correct me. But Tiny Epic Quest is the latest in the Tiny Epic series. You've played one of the games. You won't remember it, but it was Tiny Epic. You don't know me. Tiny Epic Galaxies is the best one that I had played leading up to this. Is the only one I had ever bought. Tiny Epic Galaxies is a really cool little dice rolling, engine building game about capturing planets and colonizing them. One of the planets' name is actually Leandra. I think it must have been named after a Kickstarter backer.
Really?
I showed you this when we played the game.
Oh, yeah, you did. That's right. I do remember that part.
So, Tiny Epic Galaxies was a hit for me. So, this newest one, Tiny Epic Quest, a friend of mine had Kickstarted it and brought it to game night. Shout out Jimmy. And we played it. And I was pretty excited about it because the whole kick is like, it's basically Tiny Epic Zelda. Only they don't have the license, so they can't say that. But it's basically a Legend of Zelda sort of theme. And you've got you set up a board of cards out of double-sided cards, and they're made up into grids. Each card is bisected by a road and a stream. So that makes this grid pattern of roads and streams throughout the board that you build. And then you take your little meeples, and this is the coolest part about the game. I'm not going to explain the whole thing. Basically, you're going around using cards to move your meeples in different ways to get them into positions to fight orcs and score points. But the coolest thing about this game is the meeples are called item meeples, and they have little holes in their arms, and they can hold these little plastic tokens of
super
weapons.
Fun.
Yeah, so they've got a staff, a shield, a sword, a little magic potion, a ruby. I think there is a bow and arrow. There's like a grappling hook. There's just all kinds, and every one of those items has a special power that you can use at certain times to help you out in the game. Now, it's super hard to get these things. That's one thing we found out. Like, nobody got more than one thing on their little dudes, but we were all trying to get them. But I really liked it. Thought it was a slick system. When it comes out for wide release, I'm going to pick it up based on one place. So that's pretty good. I mean, because I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, this will appeal to a lot of people. This is a really smooth, easy playing game. That's a lot of fun, quick to get into. Just a couple of mechanisms that make it thinky, that are a little hard to grasp at the beginning, but if somebody already knew it when they started teaching you, we learned right out of the rule book. So if you already knew that part, then it wouldn't be hard to teach anybody at all. So Tiny Epic Quest from Gamelin Games, I thought was a hit for me, and pretty much everybody else at the table that played. So, all right, babe, I think that's all we got in games we've been playing, right?
I think so.
Let's move on to our main feature. We're going to talk about game mechanics. All right, we're back talking game mechanics. Lee, why don't you tell us a little bit about your favorite game mechanics? And when we're talking game mechanics, what are we even talking about?
How the game operates. What is the mechanics behind the operation of the game?
Yeah, last week we talked theme. That's what the wrapping on the game is, that draws you in, the bling, the billboard, and this is under the hood. This is what makes the game work. What kind of system did they decide to use to actually drive this game forward? So what's one of your favorites?
I would say one of my favorites is deck building.
Yeah.
Yep, I enjoy that, which today I did learn by saying deck building that there is a difference between deck collection and deck building. Is collection the right word?
Construction.
Construction. Shoot. Okay. So deck construction and deck building apparently are two different things.
Yeah,
which I learned this evening.
You were talking about like specifically Gwent as a deck builder, or that would be like saying Magic is a deck builder, and
but you
that's
already have the full deck.
Yeah, that's what some people. I mean, I've heard that before too, but basically, I think technically in the board game hobby, it's considered to be a deck builder is like you start out with some crappy cards. And throughout the game, the whole game is about building your deck and making it better and using those cards to get other cards, which it doesn't really happen in Magic or Gwent or Hearthstone or anything like that. You got your deck and you play your deck, and that's what happens. So, yeah, deck builder is making a better deck throughout the game, right?
Well, so an example of deck building that I've enjoyed is Harry Potter Battle of Hogwarts.
What did you like about it?
Well, the theme.
Yeah.
First of all, I love the theme. I love Harry Potter stuff. I'm not like a Harry Potter freak like my little sister, but I do enjoy some Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I liked the game. I liked playing with you, and I liked playing with Vaughn, and I found that we will never win, ever win that game. But the deck building is fun, and buying all the teachers' powers and the Nimbus 2000 and all that stuff. That's fun.
Yeah, I think it's got great use of the theme for like what's basically a mass market game. It's made by USAopoly, which is, normally not a hobby board game maker. They venture into them, on the outskirts sometimes, but make party games and stuff like that. It's a heck of a production, I'll say that. Like, it's broken down in the box into 7, each basically broken into chapters for each book. And each one has new cards and new mechanisms. And I don't think, the bad guys, the villains are per chapter. Yeah, they come out as they come out.
So
in
the ones that you
movies.
fight are the chapter that you're working on. So that's kind of neat.
And then there's actually, I don't really care about spoiling it. I mean, at this point, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell, we'll just say it. At a certain point, you're unlocking these things and like dice come into the game, which is cool. I knew that before I started playing. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. And then dice come in, which is it's a really cool way of changing up that deck building system of having some cards that you need dice to activate and stuff. And it has great components, little metal Horcruxes and things like that. I mean, really, really cool production. They used stills from the movie instead of artwork, which I don't like, but I would have preferred like original artwork. I thought that would be really cool, but movie licensed games use that a lot of times.
Yeah.
Where does it fall down though?
You can't beat the bad guy.
Yeah, it's got a problem. When you get up to about the 5th book, maybe 5th or 6th, I can't remember where we're at.
You get like 4 villains all at the same time, and you can't get enough power going to get like all 4 of them are taking away different things from each person or as the group collectively. And so then you're trying to get the other 3 and without your powers. And so it's you just can't. We've tried it 4 times and we cannot get past it.
So the game is a cooperative deck builder, which is not all deck builders are. It's definitely my favorite way to make a deck builder.
Absolutely.
I prefer a cooperative deck builder over a mono deck builder any day. But this one, you're all working together, which is good, makes it easier usually. But the game progresses at such a pace to where by the 5th or 6th book, whichever one we're on, like Lee said, you're fighting multiple bad guys at once because there's one added every time you open a chapter. You just have to face a new one. And they're all pretty hard. I mean, and depending on the combinations, they come out 2 at a time when you get to that level. And depending on the combination, they can just be devastating. Like, and here's the problem with the game, the fatal flaw. One thing that was built into deck builders from the time deck building was a thing, which with Dominion was there's a culling aspect because now the one thing this game doesn't have is trash cards. Like there's not cards that you get in your deck that just don't do anything. It doesn't do that. So that's good. But also it adds more cards to the main deck of the game that you're buying from, the market deck, every chapter. So you get more to choose from. But as your deck gets bigger and bigger and you're shuffling your deck, you get less and less chance of getting the cards that you really need. So yeah, you could get a really good card in your deck, but your deck has gotten so big at this point and there's no way to thin it out. There's no culling mechanism. Now there has been a expansion released, and I mean, I almost bought it the other day. I saw it at Metagames. It's already sold out on Amazon and stuff.
I'm sure.
And I was like, and they released it, and it's called the like Monster Book or Big Book of Monsters or something like that. And it's just got more cards and stuff, but it's supposed to have a culling mechanism, some cards in there that you can get to get rid of other cards out of your hand.
Some complaints
yeah,
about
I mean, everybody knew that this was the problem with this game. And I'm wondering if that would fix it. It probably would, because I had considered just figuring out a way to make my own house rule of how we can do it, like pay some of your gold, some of your gold cards to get rid of a card out of your hand or something, but we hadn't played again since then. Because we came close. We came down to like within 1 card the last time we played. Rough. It was like, so it's not impossible, because if we would have flipped the right card, or if the bad guy's card, like there's one part in the game where the second phase, like you play your cards down and then we just call it bad shit happens phase, because just bad stuff happens. You have to draw 2 different bad cards and they get progressively worse and worse and worse as you go. And it was like, well, we would have to get the perfect cards out of this draw in order to not die before we could, because we had the cards. We knew we each had the cards in our hand to win on the next round. We just had to survive. And it came down to the last one, and somebody died. And if they died, then that was it. We were out. So it's not impossible, but man, I can't imagine. There's still another book, and I can't imagine being able to beat the next one after that. So maybe I'll pick up this expansion and we'll give it a shot again.
Okay.
If I can get a hold of it. So, and one of my favorite deck builders, I don't prefer deck building as the entire game like that one is. I like it, but once in a while. I don't like to play deck builder after deck builder after deck builder. But I do like deck building used as part of the game. Like, there's a game that I have called Tyrants of the Underdark, which is a Dungeons and Dragons theme game. Now, it is a pretty straight up deck builder, but alongside that, you use your deck that you build to put guys out on a board and take control of different areas of the Underdark where the Drow live in D&D. So it uses that deck building mechanism, a pretty simplified version of deck building, to power a different game, an area control game, which to me makes it more exciting because you're doing it for a reason. You're not just making this card to do this card to do this card, which is why I like co-op, because you've got a shared vision that you're trying to do. You've got a shared goal. And in this one, it gives you a goal besides just making my deck better. To me, that's kind of boring. So I like Tyrants of the Underdark. And I like deck building as a small part of a bigger game more than I like it all by itself. So the next mechanism we're going to talk about, I think, is one of both of our favorites. That's worker placement.
Yes.
Some of our favorite worker placement games we've talked about ad nauseum, Viticulture, Lords of Waterdeep. There's tons of worker placement games.
Village.
Village is sort of, Village is a worker placement game for sure. Yeah, it is. Village, Zolkin, I don't think you've played that one. That's a really great one. Some of the best Euro games are worker placement. And the cool thing about that mechanism, what do you like about worker placement?
I like that you have all the different options to choose from. With deck building, you're literally just deck building, for the most part. And so with worker placement, you have all these different people and you get to choose all these different things. Or like with viticulture, you have different seasons. And so you have to kind of hold back your people so that when winter comes, you need to save at least one person to be able to produce your wine in the winter. And, and so being able to think ahead, I think that kind of goes in line with my making notes kind of thing. I like to be prepared and plan ahead and what was my strategy, what's my plan.
I think that's a big thing about worker placement. Based on early worker placement games, which I think one of the first ones was Kalis, I think the mechanism came about because it's pretty much the same as just selecting an action, but what it does is it limits your actions. Instead of saying you have 5 actions for this turn, and you have to remember, okay, well, for my first action, I'm going to do this. And then for my second action, I'm going to do this. How many do I have left? 4. Okay, then I'm going to do this. It gives you a count of how many actions you have, because you have little guys to put down, right? And then it simulates a little guy, a meeple, or whatever, working. And so that's more thematic.
What game is this?
Well, this is just every worker placement.
Oh.
But early on, I think in those early games, what you saw about worker placement with Kalis and them early worker placement, it's just about action selection and then blocking. That's a big part of worker placement. It's about keeping track of how many actions you have, right? So that
and
limits
screwing
you.
thy neighbor to make sure they can't do it.
Yeah, it's about blocking. So it took care of something that was harder to do in other ways in games. It gives you a very visual representation of your actions that you have and ways that you can take an action and make sure nobody else takes that action. That's where it started. Now that's been changed a lot, where there's a lot of ways to you took that action, but I'm going to take that action because, in viticulture, you've got your grande worker or whatever, and you can take a spot even if somebody's taking it, sometimes. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of other ways where you can, now they've made worker placement games where, you can kick somebody out, but then, Champions of Midgard, you can kick somebody out, but then you have to pay them money, stuff like that. There's been a lot of iteration on top of that, but the basic idea is just, hey, this is to represent how many actions you have, and there's all the possibilities of places you can go on the board. Good luck.
What was that one game that you and Anthony played? Remember when Anthony was over here? I think it was a worker placement one too, with the jail, and then you had your family members in the jail, and you had you.
That's Istanbul.
That was a fun game.
It's a worker placement game, yeah. It's a
I
worker
forgot
movement
about that
game more than
one.
anything, because your dudes all start out on the board. Like, they're all already out there, and it's just about where can you put them.
Yeah,
you know?
that's a
Moving
really
them
fun
around.
worker placement game.
Istanbul's a really good game. I like it. Yep. It's not a traditional worker placement game, as in where you hold your guys in your hand and then you put them out, but
No, because you
it's-
have
it's
all
similar.
your little discs, and you have to be able to drop them all off like worker
Mm-hmm.
placement, but then you have to turn around and be able to pick them all back up as you turn around
But
and
they never leave the
backtrack.
board. Yeah.
But they never leave the board,
that's-
so they're like
they're-
in a big pile.
Yeah.
But that's a really fun. I forgot about that game. That's a fun game.
It's a really good game. I don't really think it's worker placement, but
It
still.
is. It has to be worker placement. I mean, it's the same. It's the same principle. It's just
It's the same principle, but it's
you have your little people and you place them. Therefore, it is worker placement.
you move them though. You never actually place them.
But
you
it's
just
the
move
same
them around.
thing.
Well, there's a lot of games where you move stuff that you don't. But I don't know. It's nitpicking. But I wouldn't actually have thought of that one as a worker placement. But that goes to show that what worker placement just basically does is it's just another way to do actions that you do in other games in a different way.
What would you have classified it as?
I don't know. What is that one? It's kind of a route building game. It's kind of a route movement game. It's an efficiency game. I don't know that I wouldn't call it
It is
worker
an
placement
efficiency game.
because I wouldn't call it worker placement simply for the fact that your dudes never leave the board and you really can't block anything. I mean, people have to pay extra to go where you're at.
That's what reminded me of
Yeah.
it when you said you
Yeah.
have to pay. That's the first game it reminded me
That
of.
one's more to me of like an efficiency puzzle. Like, how can I get from this side of the board to that side of the board in the least amount of moves, or get to, chain all the actions that I need to do together in the least amount of moves. That's how I think of that game. But I see what you're saying. It's definitely action selection game, which is what all worker placement games are. It's just done a different way. When I think worker placement, I think Kalis, Lords of Waterdeep, Viticulture,
Vinos.
sort of. Again, that's that thing. You've got your worker. He doesn't really come off the board, but it's an action selection thing, and he does represent your worker, and you are placing him on different actions. So I was thinking about that earlier. I think that technically is a worker placement game. Just you only have one worker, So that's an interesting thing about it too. And I think there's more than one game like that, like considered worker placement games, where you only have one guy. So as we can tell, they run a wide range of different games. So I think it's a really good mechanism. It's one of our favorites. Most games that have that, I think it's easier to teach people those kind of games, don't you?
Yes. Well, Lords of Waterdeep was, of course, my first love, my first game, and that's what made me fall in love with board games. Period. So
And it seems to be really easy to introduce
it
to
is.
anybody.
It's way easy to learn.
So I think that's one of the advantages of worker placement.
Agreed, baby.
What's another one?
Set collection.
Yeah.
I like set collection games. Example is Takenoko.
Yep. And we had a little argument about this when we were thinking about this, that you maybe didn't consider this a
don't
set collection.
necessarily think that Takenoko is a set collection, but you did.
I think it is. I mean, it's a lot of other things too, but at its heart, you're trying to get, for that matter, Lords of Waterdeep is a set collection game too. But it's a part of a worker placement game.
But in set collection, in my mind, is you literally are getting collected sets. Like, that's literally what
set
it means.
collection goes back
so
to
how
like...
is Takenoko a set collection?
Well, set collection can mean different things. I think classically you think back to it as like Monopoly is a set collection game. You're trying to collect sets of the different properties. And that's been used for a million other games since. And sometimes it's considered like a cheap mechanism to use. But in Takenoko, I think it's used by way of the sets that you're collecting is the bamboo in order to score those cards. Just like in Lords of Waterdeep, the sets that you're collecting are the cubes of the mages and the fighters and the guys to...
See, I would have never thought Lords of Waterdeep was a set collection.
But think about it. You're collecting those cubes that you need.
But not in sets.
To make sets, particular sets that are on the scoring cards that you need.
I guess,
No, you're not trying to get 4 white ones unless that's what it asks for. You're not trying to get all white ones or all black ones.
But you're
or
not
all
trying
purple.
to collect them. Like,
But I don't...
You're getting the cubes to finish out a card, and that's it. Like, that's the end. Like, the same with Takenoko. You're getting the bamboo to finish out the card, and that's it. You're not collecting them. They're not sitting in front of you in a pile collected.
Yeah, but I don't consider that because, okay. That being said, set collection is very much an actual
potion
mechanism.
Explosion is set collection. So you have your different potions, and then you collect them. You literally put them in front of you, and they are collected in sets. There's sets of 6, or there's sets of doubles, or there's sets of, I don't remember what else there was, but you actually keep them in sets together, and that's how your points are based off, is per set collection.
That's just, no, all you do when you just get an extra bonus thing when you collect a set. That's not the entire point of the game.
No, it's not, but it's part of the game.
But that's what I'm saying. Like what I'm talking about, Talking Uncle, that's part of the game, collecting those sets. Lords of Waterdeep, that's part of the game. Can you think of one hobby game where all you do is collect sets of stuff? Would you consider Lantern?
Yeah,
would you consider
train game, the trombone game? That's,
trombone?
Yeah, that's
don't
take that.
No, I just need
heard
to breathe.
that. I feel like that's
it's absolutely not a set collection game. I don't.
But you're collecting. How do you not think that's a set collection?
It's a number collection game. But
you have all of those collections, and it's all like it's 1 through 10, and it's all different colors, and each color has its own set of collection. Right.
I guess you're right.
That's a set collection game.
That's not the whole game, though. That's what I'm saying. Like that's not all it does. Like, would you say Lanterns is a set collection game?
No, because you don't keep them. You don't collect them.
I don't agree with your theory of what a set collection game means. So even if you're collecting sets for the whole game in order to score points, you don't consider it a set collection game.
I think the point of set collection is that you actually collecting
You
them.
are collecting them. You're just turning them in for
but
points at a certain point.
But then you just turn them in. Yeah, no, like there are games where you turn them in, obviously.
Every game.
But then every game. But then there's the games that act, and that's your points. Like that's right.
Okay. Yeah. But I don't think that's the only thing that's a set collection game.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway.
You know more about board games than I do.
Well, yeah, I think you're talking like a very, like that game that you're describing would sound very boring if all I was doing was trying to get sets of stuff and set it in front of me. That would be the most boring game of all time. That would be Monopoly. So in my opinion, that's like, if that's what you consider set collection, then that would be boring. But I think set collection as a
Catan
mechanism in a game. Yeah, well, Catan, you don't keep that stuff. You use it to build roads and to build towns. But you're obviously collecting sets of stuff in order to do that. Do we agree?
Yes, I agree.
Good Lord.
I agree.
Set collection is a mechanism. It's not a game in and of itself.
It should be.
Well, it's not. It would be a boring-ass game.
All right, so back to it being a mechanism of the game, not just the game.
So do you agree that it's a mechanism in Takenoko?
Okay, yeah. So Takenoko would
You're
be...
collecting sets of the bamboo to do stuff.
Whatever. So is Potion Explosion. So is Catan, which my favorite, of course, is Catan Junior, because that's how awesome I am.
Because that is just a set collection game. No, that's the same thing. You're just collecting sets, and then you're turning them in to make things.
Big wood cutouts of the sheep and the swords.
I like Catan Junior too. It's super fun. Okay, that's enough of your nonsense set collection bullshit. All right. One of my favorite is dice placement. It's kind of a newer idea.
No, it's older. It's an old idea.
Is that what we're doing? As I was saying before you rudely interrupted me, dice placement is one of my favorite mechanisms. Sort of a newer mechanism. I hadn't seen it before. A game called Alien Frontier. And then I immediately went and designed a game that had that mechanism in it. And then it's been everywhere since then. We just talked about La Granja earlier. And that has that, a bit of that. It's not really placement. It's dice selection to do actions. One I was thinking of originally that I really liked was El Gaucho. And that's about collecting sets. That's literally a set collection game about collecting sets of different kind of cows.
El Gaucho.
In order to score points. El Gaucho.
I had gauchos in the 90s. Remember those? Those pants, those short.
You probably look just like a Mexican cattle farmer, just like in this game. And that game, the starting player rolls a bunch of dice, and then everybody goes around and takes turn taking a die, and there's a bunch of spots on the board like worker placement. So basically those dice, and then same thing in Alien Frontiers, those dice become your workers. So you take those dice, and depending on the value on the die, you pick the one that fits the action that you want, and the different actions take different levels of dice, or you get more stuff depending on like the number that's on the die. And one of the other games that I've been working on, a prototype of mine, uses this kind of idea. And sometimes they'll let you do like a Yahtzee style, like, but I basically like the idea of using the dice to put them somewhere on a board that does something. That's a cool mechanism, I think. You got another one, babe?
Yes. Let's see here. Deduction games. I like the deduction mechanics of a game.
I would have never figured out that you would have wanted to talk about that. No, I could have never deduced that you would say that.
That's such a weird word. Deduced.
Yeah. You know, deduce.
Sounds like deuce.
Deuce just means two.
That's not what I think about.
You thinking of
a poop?
I thought you were thinking of a Springsteen lyric.
No.
Like, wrapped up like a poop, another rumor in the night. That's not what I was thinking of. All right. Good Lord. So, we all know about the deduction games you like.
I know. The same ones. Sherlock and Mysterium and all them. I know. We will have to go back into it. But yes, I like deduction games.
But you definitely do like deduction games.
I do.
Well, you're going to do some heavy deducing this weekend because we're going to play some.
Don't talk about deducing.
Stop it. We are more highbrow than that, babe. We are absolutely more highbrow than that. Can't believe you would take us down this toilet humor. I don't know why you would do that. That's not what we do on this show.
I'm sorry.
Keep it classy.
Sorry.
No, we're going to play some escape room games this weekend, hopefully.
I'm excited.
That's all about deduction and figuring things out.
Deducing.
And whatnot. Yes. God, now you got me thinking of it. Anyway, moving on.
What's your last mechanics fave, babe?
My favorite mechanic, and it may be my favorite, and we talked about it earlier, is multi-use cards. Like in La Granja, like we talked about before, every card that you get gives you 4 options, and you have to decide. So if you, like we were saying, if you have, a hand of 6 cards, then you've got 24 options with those 6 cards instead of just 6, like for a normal game. You really have to think about it. And then also in Lisboa, the Vital Lacerda game that I talked about last week, those cards, they can be used multiple different ways, put down on the board or different places on your player board to do different things. And that gives you just more choice. And then also Bruges. You like Bruges a lot, right?
I did like Bruges.
Bruges is awesome. It's kind of this to an extreme because there's so many of those cards, and every card can be used in, like, let me think. I don't know, like 5.
That's where like you make the houses and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
you can put down a house. You can use each card to put it down as a house or a person in the house, or to get rid of one of your negative things like your rats or your floods or your fires or whatever. You can use it to build a canal.
It has been so long since we've played that game.
I play that game all the time at game night. I like it a lot.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I've played it so many times, but I really like it. It's great. But that's one of the main ones that I first was introduced to, that mechanic of just multi-use cards. Anything that has that kind of is a draw for me. Any game that has that mechanism. So that's pretty much it for me, and I think that might even wrap up our main feature of game mechanics. So we've talked theme and game mechanics in the last 2 weeks. We're covering it all.
We are.
I don't know what's left. Back of the box cover. What's your favorite
artwork?
Back of the box. Yeah, no, we will talk artwork sometime. I don't know if we'll do a main feature on it, but we'll definitely talk about some of our favorite board game artists at some point. So we're going to be back here in just a minute after a little message with IRL. Hey, did you think they would have a gaming convention on the moon before they had one in Springfield, Missouri? If you thought that, that's a really weird thought to have. And you're dead wrong. Because come April 14th and 15th, 2018, the 417 Gamers will be proud to present Moon City Con in Springfield, Missouri at the Oasis Inn and Convention Center. For more information, visit us at www.mooncity.com and our Facebook page, Moon City Con, and on Twitter at Moon City Con. See you there. All right, we're back with IRL. What's been going on in real life, baby?
The eclipse. How do you think about that yesterday?
How do I think about the eclipse? I think about it very little. It was super underwhelming.
So it totally was. Like I guess the part of Missouri we're from, we got I think it was 97.5% coverage.
Yeah.
So it felt like it was dusk. Like it wasn't very dark.
I mean, it was cool, but I mean, I think we're just jaded. Like, not even the heavens can impress us anymore. It's like I was honestly like, just I think it's the oversaturation of coverage of it. The
That's
build
exactly
up.
what it was. It was the build up. It was the constantly being on news and on our Facebook feed, and oh my gosh, the eclipse. And then it gets here, and it's like, oh, that was pretty cool. I think the best part though was, and I didn't get to experience it with my own eyes. I just saw pictures on Facebook. Is the shadows. The
shadows were cool. I saw that at work. I was walking around, and that was that was really the coolest thing about it. Like, I was looking up, had my glasses in my pocket. I'd look up, put them on, and check it out, and it looked exactly like it was supposed to look. I mean, it's an eclipse. We knew what it was going to look like. But the cool thing was nobody said anything about those shadows, those little like crescent moon shadows, like through, and basically it was like anytime that you would see light shine through the trees, like the leaves normally on like a sidewalk, you see the outline of the leaves, and they're moving with the wind. Well, now you would see, as soon as it started, even when it was just barely covering, as soon as the moon started going in front of the sun, it started changing the shadows, and that moonlight had like a built-in crescent to it. And the more it got, the closer it got to fully covered, the more pronounced that became. And it looked like fish scales on the sidewalk and
really
stuff.
Cool.
That was the one cool thing that
I wish
saw.
I would have seen that in person. I just saw pictures on
That
Facebook.
was cool because you could never see anything like that in any other way. Like, it was just so weird looking. It was very surreal. That was cool. But everything else was like, okay, well, they built this up so much, and I saw so many simulations of it and pictures of an eclipse before the eclipse got here that it would have been hard to be impressed by it.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that, we have friends in St. Louis who theirs was so much darker.
Oh, yeah.
And they're only 4 hours away.
But they were they were in the main strip, though, or very close to it. Like, they were in the prime viewing location. And plus there was a lot of clouds there too. So like there was a lot of times where the sun got blocked and then clouds covered the eclipse sun. So it was very dark then, so you got both the double whammy.
True.
We had a very clear sky here, so there was no clouds at all. It was cool. I mean, I would say we saw it, but it was kind of a bummer that the kids didn't get to go out.
Well, ours didn't. The older kids at the school, they were able to go out, so it was just the young kids.
The school bought the glasses, but then decided last minute, probably rightly, that they were a little too flimsy and they weren't sure that the kids could keep them on while looking at them. But they got to watch it on the NASA feed, which was probably a better view than what we had, staring up at the sun like a bunch of fools anyway. So besides the eclipse and the heavenly bodies in motion, what else you got?
You and I are going to St. Louis this weekend. It is my birthday on Friday.
Ooh, you getting older, babe?
I am. I'm going to be 36.
You're like a fine wine woman.
Oh, thanks, honey.
Just turn into vinegar.
Oh, thanks. Not so much, thanks, honey. So we got a sitter for the kid. And me and you are going to head up there and spend the weekend with my bestie and her hubby.
What are we going to do?
We're going to stay home and play board games.
We're going to try to hit the board game cafe up there on the first day when we get up there on Friday. What's it called?
Pieces Board Game Bar and Cafe.
Cool. See, I've never been to a board game cafe. They don't have them around here, sadly. So, and there's only one in all of St. Louis, which is kind of a surprise. But we're going to go check them out, and we're going to try to get an interview with hopefully the owner or maybe just someone that works there and get a little insight in how their business is going and what goes into having a board game cafe.
The hype of board games, like just in the past, 3-4 years, has just grown so much. Like, I didn't look to see how many years this place has stayed open.
Opened last year, I think.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's such a new thing, for some of them, like Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, those are board games, but, this whole thing, it's just new and it's exploding.
Yeah. Well, it's new to us for sure, but it is definitely, like, I think due to a lot of things. I think one of the main factors is Kickstarter is bringing the attention of the masses to it, because I think were responsible for the top, 3 or 4 top grossing Kickstarters in the past 2 years were board games, where there's one game that made over $10 million. I mean, that's big. That's big money.
Heck,
and once you start making big money like that, you start getting people's attention. And I think just it's in the zeitgeist. People our age are now the main consumers of things, and people our age have, the rest of development, and we all want to be kids in some ways. And this is a good way to be kids in our spare time, we do grown-up stuff all the time, and then we feel like when we want to relax, do we want to just veg out and watch, movies or TV or watch Fox News all day? No, we want to relax and, do something that harkens back to some kind of social activity, because we're busy on our phones all the time.
Well, I'm super excited because it's my birthday, so I get to.
It's my birthday. Okay. Let's party.
Yeah. Oh, close enough. So we're gonna go out and do some karaoke on Saturday night, and I talked to my bestie, and we're old now, and so we had to pick and choose what kind of fun did we have. Did we want to?
Because usually you guys get day drunk, and then you have to take naps because you're old people.
Yes, and so we're like, let's not go out and get day drunk. Let's just stay home and get day drunk, and then probably still take a nap. But at least we're going to be home in our pajamas, getting day drunk, playing board games together with our husbands, and then going to go out and get all gussied up and paint the town Saturday night.
Half of that plan sounds amazing to me.
All of it sounds amazing to you.
That'll be super fun. I can't wait.
Yeah, and we're going to bring Mansions of Madness. We're going to bring your new game, Century Spice Road, Sherlock, Dice Forge, and I'm kind of thinking, is it the Bloody Inn?
Yeah.
I think maybe we should bring that one. I really like that game. It's been a while since we've played.
We haven't played it in a while. Yeah, and we said we were going to play it again.
And we're going to bring the escape room box.
Yeah, we're going to bring a couple of the little escape room games. The Unlock, I have that one of those, and then one of the exit games. We're going to try those out.
So all of those games are ones that we'll be talking about next week.
And hopefully, next week, we're going to be talking about escape room games and the disposable game movement. Scott and Tracy, both like us, have some experience with escape rooms, going and doing them and making them, designing them. I've designed escape room. Scott and Tracy have designed an escape room. And so we're going to talk about that because we really haven't brought up too much of that because I've been wanting to get more of these escape room board games played. So that's going to be our big weekend, and hopefully we'll have a lot of good audio, some interviews for next episode. I bought a new handheld recorder, so a portable one, so hopefully I can get better quality audio than what I've been having with the interviews with my phone. Hopefully it will sound a lot better. Anything else for you on IRL, babe?
I think that's it.
Well, I'm going to do a quick thing before we sign off, and I'm going to give a book review or a book recommendation more than a book review because I don't really want to spoil the book itself. It's called Meddling Kids. It's by Edgar Quintero, and all I'll say is it's basically the grown-up, adult, mature, raunchy Scooby-Doo gang versus Cthulhu. It's really, really cool. I saw the cover of it at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, oh man, do I have an Audible credit right now? I wouldn't check my phone. Yes, I do. I haven't got anything in a month. And I immediately downloaded it and listened to it. Excellent, excellent book. So if you like either Scooby-Doo or Cthulhu, it reminds me of like a Stephen King light book. It's that kind of, it's a really good writing style and just a kind of an irreverent take on it's not licensed, obviously, Scooby-Doo, but it's a real grown-up look at that, and I think it's really cool. So check it out, and if you read it, let me know what you think about it. I guess that's pretty much all I've got. So read Meddling Kids, play some escape room games, prepare for episode 7. We'll be back next week, talk all those things as soon as I find the thing on my phone that lets us sign off officially. There we go. So we'll be back next week to talk about some such other things.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks again for listening to the NSFWP podcast. You can find us on the web at nsfwppodcast.com and on Facebook and Twitter at NSFWP Podcast. You can also find me on Twitter at Meeple of Madness. Come on back next week for another great episode. See ya.